Hello again, and now we're going to feed the birds. So before I feed them, I'm just going to show you what we do feed them. There's a very scientific process that goes into developing this diet for them. This resembles what we feed our captive birds because obviously within captivity there's nutritional requirements you have to provide. So today they've got a combination of beans, sunflower seeds, some oranges, some papaya and some plantain. On top of that we provide a soya protein, a calcium supplement and a vitamin supplement, and this is to ensure that if they are coming here for an emergency food supply, what they receive is rich in nutrition. We feed them twice a day, but across that we only provide them with 10% of their food. We will never provide them 100% because that would not mean that they were wild. So we don't want all of them to be here. If we saw our whole wild population of almost 60 individuals sat here in this tree, it would be fantastic, but they would not be wild and they would not be contributing to wilder populations. So this is why we only provide them a small supply. I will explain some more about the feeding and the release process once I get back from feeding them. So I'm going to head down the hill here. We watch the feeder come up into the sky and then we'll talk some more. So you can never really predict how many birds are going to show up, and this is because they're wild. So sometimes no birds show up for feeding, and this is a great thing. Obviously when there's a tour and no birds show up, it's a shame, but it's a really fabulous thing in regards to conservation, because this means that they don't need our food supply. We do have some here, but because right now we have some adaptations to the feeding station. This is because we're filming them, so they have to learn to know that these cameras and adaptations are not going to harm them. So it does mean that there's a little bit of hesitance in regards to approaching that feeding station. They are coming in closer, and hopefully we'll see them at the feeding station in a moment. Here we go. So what we do in regards to releasing these birds is called a soft release process, and this is basically to make that transition into being a wild bird as easy as possible. So once they finish that internal pre-release training, we simply open up the door of the aviary and start feeding them on the outside. This gives them an incentive to leave and find wild food sources. It could take over half an hour before the first one leaves, but eventually they're going to step outside and start exploring. With intensive monitoring though, we monitor them every day to ensure that they're doing okay and they don't need any extra support. But for a few more weeks, they may still sleep inside of the aviary. When we recognise that they no longer sleep inside of the aviary, what we do is close off the door and relocate the feeding station. This gives them an incentive to explore the wider environment and find wild food sources. And this is why today you never know how many are going to show up. It's working. We slowly reduce that food source down as well, so they have a continued incentive to find wild food sources and be a wild bird. What you can see being displayed at the feeding station right now is that social hierarchy. With any social animal, you're going to find that they do have a hierarchy in that. So you'll find dominant birds and birds that sit lower down in that social grouping, as well as kind of a more tolerant social group that sits somewhere in the middle. Right now it's breeding season, so you will see that more dominant breeding pairs take over those feeding stations because they want to feed their family. Stress is increased during breeding season because they have to support a larger family, and the male becomes the primary forager. What you can see right now is maybe one of those more tolerant social grouping systems. There's birds sat off in the trees, and these guys are going to wait to feed until last. Can anybody tell the difference between males and females? Which ones are boys and which ones are girls right now in front of us? No? Nobody can tell? It's not the tail feathers. The males are not bigger. They actually look exactly the same. They are what we call sexually monomorphic. This means that they genetically display the same things. With other types of birds, you see the males display all these fantastic plumes of different coloured feathers. During breeding season, they'll do these dances to find a new partner every year. These guys are way more romantic, and because they're monogamous, they mate for life. They have no reason to look any different to each other. So it's not really about what you look like, it's just about your personality, and I think that that is fantastic. Please comment on the videos to find out any answers to any questions. We're going to try our best to provide you with as much information as possible here. So thank you very much for checking in with us again. Like I said, comment and we'll try and answer all of your questions. And please do check out all of our links. If you want to donate, please do. Thank you very much.